Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Friends of the Arboretum lecture. Tonight I have the opportunity to introduce our speaker, one Tony Avent, and I just have a very brief introduction, so I'll begin. Tony Avent is the owner of Plant Delight's Nursery and Juniper Level Botanic Gardens in Raleigh, North Carolina. Plant Delight's Nursery and Internet. Okay, listen, if you want to know about this man, go to the website, go to Plant Delight's website, and you can read all about him. There are lots of things on the internet you can read about him, but what I'd like to do is just share a couple of things that I know about Tony that maybe is not on the internet. And I don't want to take a lot of time, excuse me, I don't want to take a lot of time tonight because we all know that Tony takes a lot of time tonight. So with that, he was and is an alumnus of the Department of Horticultural Science at NC State University, and so we are very, very proud in the Department of Horticultural Science to claim him as one of our own. But here are two things I want to tell you about Tony. Tony has replaced me, and you may not know what I'm talking about. What I mean is that in the eyes of my mom, I no longer am number one. It was a few years back when she first laid eyes on Tony. He doesn't probably even remember. It was a Pi Alpha Xi plant sale, and he happened to be in the house. And I was with my mom. We were walking through the Arboretum and through the plant sale, and all of a sudden she touched me by the arm and she said, "There he is." She made me go up and introduce her to him. And the rest is history, so thanks a lot, Tony. Now I know how my younger brother feels. On a more serious note, I want to just tell you what a generous man that Tony Avent is. And his generosity is not only in many different ways on behalf of this Arboretum, but also on behalf of the Department of Horticultural Science. It's not uncommon that Tony will be invited to come speak and to the Horticulture Club and to students, or lead a tour of students on a field trip out at Plant Delight's, and he never hesitates and he never charges. And we just really appreciate the time and effort and the wisdom that he brings to not only the J.C. Ralston Arboretum, but also to the Department of Horticultural Science. And that's a good example of how our alumni always give back after having come through. So with that, I am just proud and happy to be able to introduce Tony as our speaker tonight.
Okay, are we wired?
Yes.
I think so. Now let's see if I can find my remote. Which remote was I supposed to use? Did I lose it? Okay. Appreciate so many people coming out tonight. We did sort of stack the house tonight. We got a lot of visitors from the Spartanburg Community College. Y'all want to raise your hands? We're delighted to have y'all tonight. Yeah, that's why the So we tried to get them to sit toward the back because I'm probably going to put them to sleep. They've had a really long day of touring gardens today. Why don't we go ahead and kill the lights and as we know, a lot of the talks I do are based on travels around the world, and this year was certainly no different. I was invited actually to speak, to do 2 talks in Sweden. Actually, we don't have to have it quite that dark if somebody wants to actually make notes on their slide list. Do we have, we're going to turn it back over here. Yeah, maybe get something in the back, just in case anybody wants to write. Actually, because I spent such a long time putting the slide list together, it would be nice if somebody saw it. But I was invited to do a couple talks in Sweden at Peter Korn's garden. Peter has sort of a garden like ours, very similar setup, and he visited us several years ago and invited me to speak. And I said, well, sure, sounds like a good deal to me. So a week before I was to depart, he emails and he says, "Oh, I didn't have enough people sign up, so I'm canceling the lecture."
Oh.
Okay, that's fine, but I'm still coming because it's a little hard to get your money back for flights when you've done that much travel in advance. So what we did, we decided to go ahead and extend the trip, fly into Germany, drive through Germany, and then up to Sweden. And I want to just share some of the things that we saw. This was a very unusual trip for me because I typically am only interested in natural areas and natural things. There is nothing natural left in Germany. There is zero natural forest. There is nothing left. Everything there is man-made. So it was very different in trying to visit gardens. So we're starting out, this was this year, May 26th. The reason I really went to Germany was to start out here at the Botanic Gardens down in Munich. We had gotten an interest several years ago in the genus Aspidistra. And on many of our travels, we've collected a number of species, and the only guy we could find that had any interest in Aspidistra was a guy that worked here, Dr. Hans Hansen. And so when we would find a new species, we would send it to him, he would flower it, and then publish it for us. He's published 3 new species so far out of our collection, and we've got a lot more. So we wanted to go there and see the Aspidistra collection. We didn't realize that when we got there, he had actually just retired and moved away, but he had made arrangements for us to visit. It's a very old garden in the middle of the city. It was very interesting as we walked around. This is looking into the main buildings, very old. This houses a lot of the university professors. A lot of their material is moved in and out. This is where they move a lot of the large tropicals out for the summer to refurbish them. This is the way the majority of the gardens looked. And yes, those are weeds. It was unbelievable how unmanicured and how just let go the gardens were. And they're facing problems that a lot of gardens are facing, is one of funding. And this garden has definitely been one that has not been funded. It was very interesting as we looked around. The landscaping is pretty much done in the 50s and 60s. Every single cultivar you see is from the 50s and 60s. They have added 0 since that time. So it really is a garden sort of stuck in time and very sad to see. But it was very interesting to see this, and yet every hedge was clipped within an inch of its life. So we know where their priorities are. It's clipping hedges, not mowing grass, which in my opinion would have been a lot more effective. The only bed of anything new in the entire garden was this little bed of iris. So obviously one of their key people or one of their researchers is an iris breeder, because that little area, and that's it. That was the only new plants in the entire garden. Even their rock garden was pretty much overgrown and weeded. The only thing interesting I saw in the entire rock garden was this little astragalus, which I definitely have to find. That was cute as a button, only about 6 inches tall. This is what we were after, was the Aspidistras. This is actually the only one that was still in bloom. This is Aspidistra loki. Normally Aspidistras flower right in the ground, but this one had this long floral spike and this really, I mean, again, the size of a silver dollar flower. It's quite unusual for an Aspidistra. So we were allowed to spend probably about 3 hours in there photographing, documenting, and now we're hoping they'll be willing to share. Like all gardens, especially in Europe now, they bought into the conventional biodiversity hook, line, and sinker, which means they don't share. It's all about allowing you to hoard plants and not distribute them among other institutions. So we're trying to pull strings to see if we can get some of these, because their entire collection does not exist in the U.S. at all. And that's a shame, because the care some of these things are getting is not really there. Right beside the Aspidistra greenhouses were some of the cacti and succulents. And what's very interesting was when a researcher at the garden studies something, the Germans are avid collectors. I mean, the joke when we go out in the wild is, how many Germans will you find beside the road passed out? Because they've gone everywhere. They're just amazing and very voracious collectors. When they collect and they finish research, the gardens holds on to their collection, even though nobody's worked with some of these collections in 50 years. They continue to maintain them. They continue to repot them and propagate them and repot them and propagate them and water them and care for them. These are in research greenhouses. Nobody sees them except the people that take care of them, and they don't share them. Which in my mind is a little bizarre. And And then they wonder why there's no funding to cut the grass, because they spend time. It's really crazy. Whereas if they were into sharing like we are here, they would send things to an institution that could use them and get them out or get them into the trade, and then they wouldn't have to maintain them because the plants would be out. So really, really quite odd. This very large, very expensive greenhouses to maintain plants just for the sake of hoarding. They do have some public areas, and the public greenhouses are the nicest thing there, by far. The public display houses are absolutely incredible. This is the cacti and succulent house. Of course, you could only walk in here. You can't go in and actually get close and see the plants. But it really was an amazing collection inside. Not only those, we went in the fuchsia house. God knows we can grow any of those. But just amazing, giant. I mean, this is zone 6. So it's a cooler summer than we have, a cooler winter, and fuchsias really love it there. It was amazing, entire cycad house, and these are all cycads I took a picture of that we can grow outside here, which really freaks them out. This is Ceratozamia equestriana, which does extremely well for us. It's another of the ceratozamias. Both of these grow absolutely fabulous here, came through last winter, great shape in our gardens. The plant I was really glad to see is one I had just started growing recently. This is Semelli. Is anybody growing Semelli? This is Semelli androgyna. This is the androgynous Semelli. We actually later would see the gay Semelli, Semelli gayi. I never saw Semelli straightiana. Somebody really had fun naming these plants. This is first cousin to Ruscus and Danae, poet's laurel. This is the climbing member of the genus, so they gave it a different genus name. And you see the fruit, very similar to what you would see on a poet's laurel. We're trying this outside, have no idea if it'll do. The books say no, but we never let our plants read books. And then these incredible specimens of Welwitschia. Oh my God, this incredible African plant. Has anybody ever grown Welwitschia? Do y'all know about Welwitschia? Welwitschia, the leaves, each plant only produces one set of leaves ever. The leaves can be up to 2,000 years old, each leaf. This is a conifer. The closest relative are pines. Is that just like the weirdest thing? Or what? This is just, they've now made their own family. It's now in the Welwitchiaceae. So there's only one. But just a truly amazing plant from the deserts of Africa grow where there's virtually no rain, and it was really cool. We actually have seedlings of these back at the nursery now, so I just so great to finally see this plant in person, an older specimen that's flowering size. For lunch, we ducked out to a local restaurant that was recommended to us, a Greek restaurant in the middle of Munich. I thought that was pretty interesting in and of itself. But and really, the food was quite good, but I was fascinated by the menus. The Greeks view sex very differently, as we would see a little later on. And you sit down, and of course, the liquor is at your plate before you even order. So very different culture, and that's what's so neat about traveling around. As we finished up the garden and left, heading north toward Dresden, it was pretty wet, pretty rainy, so we decided to stop. And the beauty of cell phones now, the beauty of smartphones, is you just hit a button and say, find me a hotel. And it gives you a list of the closest hotels to where you're located. And it gives you the reviews from the hotels, which is just absolutely fabulous. I love this. I just, for years, I wouldn't have a smartphone, but now I would not do without it. I mean, when you're in a foreign country and you don't speak the language, finding a hotel used to be hard. Now it's a breeze. So we wound up in this little town of Lauf, L-A-U-F, which is just the cutest little town. It's right out of a postcard of, it just looks like a Christmas card. This beautiful little town, the wonderful old streets. I was fascinated as we walked through downtown to see this big dang bird nest. Oh my God, I've never seen a bird nest that big. Turns out these are white storks. And they actually love storks. They love to have them come shit on the roofs and sit there. They build these big things for them. I mean, I cannot imagine living in a place that's got a bird that big crapping on your roof. I just, can't imagine it's very sanitary, but that's evidently pretty normal, and that's a big prize thing. It brings you luck. It obviously brings births and things like this to your household, so pretty neat. The hotel we wound out here, I just love this. The hotel gassed off, and you get hotel and fart. How can you not stay in a place like this? Our language is just so fascinating. Really, really cute little place. You have you can only P-max for 15 minutes. You can really have fun with the signs over there in Germany. So we spent the night there. The next day we made the short drive up to Dresden. The first stop was a little place called Alpine Gardens. And this was a private estate, obviously a plant nerd, who had passed away, and he had put it in the equivalent of an endowment there. And it was maintained as this wonderful little garden. It was in a residential area. They can't imagine they can have more than a couple of visitors at a time, but a fascinating little place. This is on the left, Rico Niesel. Rico had actually visited our garden. Rico works for a forestry department in Dresden. He visited our garden several months earlier. He's a magnoliophile and fern collector. And I mentioned to him, and he speaks really good English, which is great. And I said, if I'm coming over there, I'd really like to see a nice fern collection. He said, I've got the place for you. Meet me at Alpine Gardens. And so we're here with the director of the gardens now. This is Stefan Jessen. It's basically a two-man operation. This man has collected ferns all over the world. He's had many new species named from plants he's found growing in this garden, especially many new hybrids. So it was absolutely 3 hours of just joy seeing over 100 new ferns. And I just share a few with you today. They make all their money from either donations or from plant sales. Here they're growing 2 species of Shortia, our native and the Asian native, which we have trouble growing here. It grows absolutely fabulous in Germany, really quite amazing. The ferns, oh my God, absolutely incredible. This is little Asplenium, and this is 2 inches tall. Asplenium visum, Asplenium fontanum. This is one wild collected in France. Asplenium verde, and these are all, the aspleniums are really tiny. From Japan, the Asian version of our native Asplenium scolopendrium, which also goes into Europe. Ethereum, this is Ethereum yokoense that he collected in North Korea. This is a brand new species of Ethereum he also collected in North Korea. Silver foliage, this has never been named. This will be a new species to science. Really quite amazing to see. Cryptogrammus. Anybody grown cryptogrammus? I'm in love with cryptogrammus. These things are like 6 inches tall. Cute as a button. This is Cryptogramma acrosticoides. Love this. Cryptogramma crispa. Again, like 3 inches tall. Just absolutely cute as a button fern. Dropterus. Dropterus liensis. Lunensis. One I've never heard of. I've got so many I've never heard of here. Dropterus, no, excuse me, that was ardensis. That's lunensis. Submontana, Dropterus tyrina. Never even heard of this. I don't know that these even exist in the United States, but we're certainly going to try to get in sport. This is one of his hybrids, Dropterus bractheca. This is a cross of Felix moss and Carthusiana, both plants we grow in this country, and he found this natural hybrid. Osmundus. I thought I knew all the Osmundus. Osmunda gracilis, never grown that. Osmunda asiatica, related to our native royal ferns. This is our native interrupted fern, but it's the European version, Osmunda clintoniana. Fantastic plants, just amazing. This is a little Polypodium hesperum, which I didn't know, it's a U.S. native. Native to the Pacific Northwest and come on down into Montana. Some of there's cute little plant. This is a crested version of our native Christmas fern. Is that like cool as can be? Oh my God. Oh, wow. I could get excited about stuff like, I mean, this is just, to me, this was just absolutely, whoops, an amazing thing. This is a crested form of the heart fern, Polystichum aculeatum, which I've never heard of a crested form of that before. Whoops. Oh my goodness. Sorry, more ferns than I know what to do with. Polystichum longitis, collected in Slovakia. Polystichum autoforum, never heard of that one. One he collected in Sichuan. Polystichum vestitum from New Zealand. I mean, they're incredible. Polystichum bignellii. This is a hybrid of Sativum, which we've grown with aculeatum. Polystichum marii, another hybrid. Little woodsias, Woodlea plumerae. Never heard of any of these ferns. I mean, our collection now, we have 950 different ferns. To go somewhere and see 100 that you've never seen, that's pretty cool stuff. The U.S. native Cornus canadensis, a little dwarf ground cover dogwood that we struggle to grow here. It hates heat. Oh my God, it's in full bloom there, 6 inches tall. This is the coolest dogwood ever. I'm determined one day I'm going to grow this. JC used to have it in the lab house, and it did really well until stuff got moved around and then it got killed. But we know it can grow here, and we've got to be able to grow this one again. That was just amazing to see. Paris. For those that don't know, Paris is the first cousin to trilliums. This is the European Paris quadrifolia that we've seen in the wild a couple of years early over in the Balkans, just in full bloom, absolutely delightful. I've killed this. I've killed this like 5 times. This is the smallest Solomon seal that exists.
Wow.
This is Hooker Solomon seals, 2 inches tall and purple flowers. I've got to figure out how to grow this plant because, I mean, to see it over there, it makes a little ground cover like 18 inches wide, just a solid mass, just cute as a button. Flowers are almost as big as the plant itself. We've got to figure out. Is anybody growing this? Has anybody been successful with Polygonatum hookeri? We've got to figure out a way to grow this plant here. The Shortius, as I mentioned, Shortia asiatica. Oh my God, absolutely gorgeous. We actually have this alive. I've brought it through the summer so far. It does not look nearly this good, but we're not in Germany. Didn't know this plant. This is Salix rotundifolia. This is a willow. This is a ground cover willow. It gets 1 inch tall. I came back and looked it up. It's a U.S. native. To like Montana and Utah and Colorado and Wyoming. It's like, wow, we actually should try this. Wouldn't that be a really cool, a whole different size regimen from the willows that we know? Pretty neat stuff. Oh my God, we about fell over. They're growing Nothophagus. This is a Tasmanian conifer. I had no idea this thing would be hardy in Raleigh, and they are 15 degrees colder than we are. And it's absolutely fantastic. Microstropus, another very rare Australian conifer. They've got it growing in the gardens. This just can't even be possible. That's what's so neat is you think you've got an idea of what will grow, and you go to this place, it just blows all those ideas all to heck. We finally finished up there. Weather absolutely gorgeous. We left a minute after we left the garden, downpour. We arrived at the Dresden Botanic Gardens, probably a 30, 45-minute drive away. Stopped for lunch in the garden. They have this incredible cafeteria. Oh my God, this insanely huge, very flamboyant cafeteria in the middle of the garden. Very different. You walk in, you know it's different from Munich. It's not the same garden. So I started going around the greenhouses, just looking at specimens right on the outside. This is a syringa, which I did not know. This is a lilac, Syringa tigrostedii. Can't even say that. Beautiful lilac, very different. I don't know that that's in this country yet, but we're going to try to remedy that if we can. And that just looks growable to me. About the time we passed that, the bottom fell out. One of the hardest rains I've ever seen. So we ducked inside and went through some of the greenhouses. This is another cycad, Daun spinulosum. And Rico was sharing the story of this. He said, if you look right about here where that damage is, That's World War II. This was so sacred, they had got it up. They were so worried because they were bombing, obviously Dresden, got the crap kicked out of it. They actually dug it up and moved it to a safe haven where there was no bombing. And it stayed there throughout the war, and then after the war it moved back. And so that was damage it got in the move to get it out of the way of the bombs. So I thought that was a pretty neat story. How much, if your town's getting ready to get obliterated, you're digging up a cycad to move it out. That really speaks to people's attachment to plants and the value they put on plants. That's something I will never forget. Just other neat things in there. This really cool Aristolochia. One I have not tried out. We'll be trying to get seed of that. See if we can give that a try. That just looks hardy to me. You sort of get a look after a while. We'll see. When the rains finally cleared, we went outside. Oh my God. I thought I'd seen snails. I've never seen snails like they have. That's not a stage photo. That is what the garden looked like. It was incredible. How they can grow any plants with snails like that is yummy. That snail there is 2 to 3 inches. This one is huge. Enormous snail. And the slug right beside him. They're just crawling all over each other. There were so many of them. Only thing I could figure, the reason there's no damage is one of those things in the restaurant there that we couldn't read must have been these guys. And they're just harvesting them faster than they can eat the plants. That's the only possible way. An amazing garden, so many plants we hadn't seen. Sambucus and bolus. Anybody ever grown this Sambucus? I came back and looked it up. It's a U.S. native. Where's that plant been all my life? Oh my gosh. It may not take our summers, but holy cow, it was a perennial Sambucus. It was just incredible. I'm really into plants in the Queen Anne's lace family, the Apiaceae. This is Cacharus. Anybody grown Cacharus? I'd heard of the genus. Oh my God, it's incredible with this wonderful fine foliage. It almost looks like an asparagus fern. Just incredible plants. Adamanthe, very closely related. They had probably the best collection of Apiaceae I've ever seen. And genera I've never even heard of before. We've tried Adamanthe before, and actually I could grow it, but it never looked quite this nice. So I'm gonna have to give that a little different location and try that again. The rock garden, absolutely fabulous. If you have not been, I highly recommend it. This is one of the hardy gesneriads, Raymonda, first cousin to African violet. And just absolutely amazing. This one grows on vertical cliffs. You got it, just sort of super glue it up to a rock somewhere. That's where it's happening. It's the only place these will grow, but so neat to see. This one was new to me. Now what does that look like? Hosta. That's what I said. That looks like a hosta. That is not a hosta. That is a Scorzonera austriaca. That's in the aster family. Does that look like anything in the aster family that you've ever seen? That is, I marvel over stuff like that. That's completely out of what you think an aster should look like, or a Scorzonera, whatever the heck that looks like. So that's on my list. I'm going to find this. Has anybody grown Scorzonera? Austriaca? No. We got to get this one in. That's just too cool for words. From here, we finished up at the garden end of the day, and so again, out comes the cell phone, find us a hotel. And so it did, found the Kim Hotel. That's an interesting name for a hotel. I could see that in like Korea. Germany, not so much. So we arrived at the Kim Hotel. The people were very nice. Not particularly competent, but very nice. It took her about 4 tries to figure out to get us a room correctly. So we get up on the floor, and there's this huge seating area, and where all your computers are, your chairs, your whatever, and photographs all around the wall. And not just 1 or 2. I mean, this was right where you sit to use the laptop. I mean, as I mentioned, they have very different. Puritanical and Germans are not a word that go well together. Quite interesting. interesting. The next day we were up and driving down the road. There it goes again. And this sign is everywhere, all over Germany. For the first day and a half, I thought this meant a place to get gas. Turns out, as I would find out later, that's the exit sign. And it just seems like an odd way to say exit. But when in Germany, Ausfahrt. We finally wound up, after driving an entire half day in pouring rain, at the Gelito seed store. Has anybody ever bought from Gelito seed? It's primarily sold to the industry. They have like an insane seed catalog, like 3,000 or 4,000 items they list, and they list some really obscure stuff. And I've known the Gelito folks for many years, and so we told them we wanted to come by and see their place. Really quite extraordinary. We were greeted by George Ubelart. George is now the owner. George started out as a part-timer there cleaning seed, and he worked his way up, and about 5 years ago he became the majority shareholder, so he's now the owner. He is an insane plant person, and it's really cool when you get a plant person in charge of a seed company. It's a wholesale seed company. So he offers things that they can't ever sell, but really cool stuff for people like me. So seed comes in, and they have it grown all over the world. They contract with individuals, especially in a lot of poor countries. They will go and they will say, this plant is adapted to your climate, we will buy the seed in. So the seed are shipped. This is an order that just got shipped in. And I mean, huge numbers. I mean, like 50 pounds of aster seed. Do you know how many aster seed it takes to have 50 pounds? It's insane. I mean, these people must work the entire year collecting seed. It's quite extraordinary. The seed then, once they come in, are all clean. Some seed, a few seed, are still clean with these wooden seed cleaning dishes. There's some seed that just clean better that way. And some of these dishes are, he said, over 75 years old. They've been cleaning seed in them the entire time. Most of the stuff now, though, is done with machines. This is one of their seed cleaning machine, and it goes through several processes and using air. I believe he said this machine was just over 100,000 euros. That's a lot of money to clean seed. Oh my goodness gracious. It's just an amazing operation to watch the seed being cleaned. Then they're stored. Some are stored in refrigerated bins. Some are actually frozen, depending on the seed and how they store. Everything is tagged with the dates that it's in, the source it's come. It's amazing the level of detail that these people go to keep their seed top quality. This is seed off Heuchera Palace Purple. I forget how many seed. There was like 80 million seed in each bag. Unbelievable. I cannot even begin to think how many plants they had to grow. In hundreds of acres just to get seed of that one plant. And that, he said, that will sell in 1 year. That many seed. That blows my mind. Stuff that we don't even grow in the U.S. anymore. It's still being sold in that volume in other countries. Just incredible. The other interesting thing, they test all their seed, every single seed they offer, all 4,000 varieties, twice a year for germination. Every seed is put under here. They have the right light regimen, the right temperature regimen for that particular seed, and they go in and count every single seed. Everything is documented in the computer. Never have I visited a seed company that was that meticulous, but never have I visited a German seed company before. They're sort of into the meticulous thing. From there, we headed north to George's home garden. Really amazing small garden. We were there with my friend Hans Hansen, who's with me from Walter's Gardens up in Michigan. Talk about green roof. They do green roofs really well in Germany because they have the climate for them. The climate's just moist all the time. Just amazing looking at George's, a lot of his pitcher plants. He brings a lot of stuff in from the U.S. and from literally all over the world. Oops. Pitcher plants. This was his bog trough. He's lined it with peat blocks, and just amazing what they grow our natives better than we grow them. Much better, not just a little bit better, a lot better. If we would grow something here native 6 inches tall, theirs is 18 inches. it's really hard to wrap your arms around that. This is a U.S. native Asarum. This is the West Coast native Asarum marmoratum, which I have never been able to grow. I lose it in the winter. He's 10 to 12 degrees colder than I am in the winter, and it does fabulous for him. This is really embarrassing. I do not understand this. We were able to gather seed. He had just 2 of his seedlings of Asarum marmoratum. It's the most incredible thing I've ever seen. So we spent the whole afternoon going through the gardens and gathering Asarum seeds. So we've got these sown, and hopefully next year we'll be able to find a good heat-tolerant form. Because, man, if we could grow that, that would be absolutely incredible. Our native Carex plantaginea, which I've grown, and I don't sell right now because it goes through an ugly stage after it flowers. It just goes through it, it just falls all to pieces, it looks ugly. And I was commenting, George says, oh, this is our new selection. We've been selecting this plant for years. It doesn't have an ugly phase. You have been selecting and breeding our native Carex? Are you kidding me? Nobody here even cares about this plant. But yet the Germans, they've really adopted this and created this new strain, which will be released next year. So we'll give that another shot. Pretty exciting. The other grass he had that blew me away was Phenosperma globosa. Has anybody tried this yet? We actually have this in our trials. It's a 4.5, 5 foot tall grass in the shade garden. We don't have many grasses in the shade that do that. So Phenosperma globosa. Really excited. So far it came through this summer good, which was my concern. So I think this could be a real winner. Salvia nutans. Oh my. I have never met Salvia nutans before. We like Salvia nutans. This beautiful, open, just very hairy with the pendulous flowers. Yeah, I can see that in our garden. So hopefully next year I'll be able to finally get seeds of that. I'm skipping through pretty quick. If you want to read the whole thing, we posted it on our website today. It's got many, many more pictures that I'm showing tonight and a lot more detail. From here, we headed north to Hamburg, to the Hamburg Botanic Gardens, not realizing this was a full-fledged university, and there classes are in. So we pulled up, and there is absolutely no place to park. So just like we would do when I went to school at NC State, park about 2 miles away, up on the sidewalk in somebody's yard, and then walk back to the gardens. So here we are at the entrance of the gardens. There's a typical sign, and this fascinated me. You don't generally have a naked man with his genitals hanging out right at the entrance to your garden. It's just not something that's generally done. And he had this odd look on his face. So we asked when we got in what happened. They said, well, this was like an Adam and Eve statue, and the whole idea was to show how Adam and Eve had basically ruined the world, and they've just caused the whole world to be as bad as it is today, and they're responsible for all the problems in the world. But there was so much controversy after they got Adam in there that Eve never made it again. So poor old Adam is left there hanging out more ways than one, looking for Eve. It was quite unusual, I will say. I believe I would have found a less conspicuous place for Adam if I was going to leave him in the garden. The garden's a fascinating garden, totally unlike Munich. It's more similar to Dresden. Some really neat things there. This sort of stood out. This was not really fit the gardens. Well, it turns out they had schmoozed some sheik over in Dubai. There was a contest between a lot of gardens to get this monstrosity sculpture, which really does not fit anything else in their gardens, but they got it. And then they wanted more. They figured the sheik is like loaded. So they schmoozed some more, and the sheik said, I will send you this wonderful present. So he sent them like 200 date palms. Well, of course, they get to Germany, they couldn't get in because they didn't have all the paperwork and they were plants. So they had to spend like insane amounts of money. They actually, when he sent them, they didn't know they were date trees. And so they didn't want to piss him off, so they spent all this money to get them in, and then the sheep falls over dead. So they didn't come out too good on the end of smoothing that sheet, except they got these really funky buildings that when they fall, they're going to be not good because they were nothing but glass and just a teeny bit of steel. As we came into the gardens, a couple really neat things. These were two bigeneric trees that greeted us. This is the cross of Laburnum and Cytisus, the gold chain tree, and the brooms, and very, very unusual tree. And right beside it was a cross of Crataegus and Lysippus, the medlar. Really odd, and two bigenerics I've never even seen before. So to see both of them right there in the garden was pretty neat. Not far away from there, you know you're not in the southeast U.S. Oh my God, here is the 7-foot-tall gunneras in full bloom. Yeah, that's definitely what you call some cool summers there, because rarely do they going to see a day above 85 and be able to grow that, along with things like Astilbe tabularis. So all these big, wonderful bowl foliage plants that we'd like to grow, here they are doing absolutely fabulous there. The guy we went there to visit is this guy, Cyril Claudil. I captured this photo when he went looking. He does not ever allow anybody to take his photos. So you're seeing a very rare version. Cyril is a permanent graduate student. He's one of these people that doesn't want to ever get out in the real world. So he loves school. So he's been there like 12 years. He has no formal position. He just sort of is invisible. He gets to do basically whatever he wants to, and he has nobody to really answer to. And so he's decided to breed Amorphophallus. And we have been put in contact with him about 3 years ago. He made the first interspecific crosses ever made in the genus Amorphophallus between Konjac and albus, two hardy species. And so we actually have all of his hybrids in Raleigh. We've had them now for about 2 years. We're trialing them. So we wanted to go over there and meet him in person and see the original plants. And these are pretty cool. He's had now about 12 of his 90 flower. And we had 2 we caught in flower. There's one of the hybrids. Really absolutely extraordinary, perfectly in between the parents, and there's a second. And these are going to be rock hardy. These are going to be 0 degrees, not a problem. So we're sort of jointly working to do selections. He'll decide which ones he likes for flower. We'll decide which ones we like for flower and for foliage, and then propagate, and get these named, and get these out there. But really exciting. He's doing some amazing work. There was nobody else in the greenhouses because they built these monstrous research greenhouses. And then the German government declared them unsafe for humans. I mean, they spent millions on these. They had these formal show greenhouses that the public could come in, and now only a few researchers are allowed in. So it was really fascinating to see greenhouses that were pretty much vacant. The other interesting thing, you hear a lot of talk now about the neonicotinoids insecticides. Well, Germany, about 5 years ago, banned all pesticides in greenhouses. Done. You ever tried to grow plants in a greenhouse without pesticides? It works fine in the ground. It does not work in the greenhouse. He said they've lost 50% of their collections because of that. And again, remember, they don't share. So these plants, which were wild collected, many of which were one-of-a-kinds, are now dead because they are not able to use pesticides. It's absolutely bizarre what happens when people get on these bandwagons of trying to be this way or that way, and they don't look at the end game and see that they're shooting themselves in the foot. It's quite crazy. My first time to see this in person in flower. This is a famous blue amaryllis, Worslea. Oh man, stunning. It lived up to all the hype. I've heard about this for years. Never ever seen it in bloom, and we caught it in absolute full splendor. That was an amazing, amazing amaryllis. Some incredible stuff. This is a butterwort. You know our little native butterwort? This is a Mexican butterwort. That's Pinguicula Moctezuma. Oh my God. Wow. I didn't know butterworts can look like that. I've got to get hold of this and see what fits from a part of Mexico that we could grow. That's just too cool. That would be great bog plant. The motto plant of the garden is an orchid called Disa, D-I-S-A. And this is Disa Elwisia. This is, again, their motto in the garden. And again, the public can't see this. This is all behind the scenes. Nobody ever gets to see this except the handful of researchers that go in there. Does that make any sense? Not to me. And they're spending a lot of money maintaining these, and they were absolutely incredible. We went to lunch. Cyril asked us where we wanted to go to lunch. He said, well, we're in Hamburg. Is there anywhere we can get a hamburger? And sure enough, we went to a local German hamburger joint and took the little light rail train. But on the way, you see these guys sitting everywhere with accordions. I said, what in the world is this? He said, oh, well, these guys are from Bulgaria. Bulgaria is like economy is in the tank. So the Germans, there's like, the homeless people in Bulgaria have reps. And they basically rep out their homeless people to other countries. And so the reps went to the German government and said, look, we got all these Bulgarian accordion players. Will you hire them? So the Germans now have houses, and they'll put these in, these little hostels, and these guys, and then they assign them street corners. And they sit there all day and play the accordions. It's absolutely fascinating. It's something you never would think of in America. But the Bulgarians are happy. They get good tips, and they just sit there and play the accordions all through the year, and they move them around different places in the city. What a fascinating way. After lunch, we came back. Well, Hans was particularly fascinated by this patch of salvias. There's about 4 species in here, and they'd all interbred. And the seed was not quite right, but man, he was wishing he was there a couple weeks later, because there would be, if somebody knew over there knew what they were looking at, there is some incredible genetic work going on as the species interchange. So we're hoping we can get Cyril to send us some seed over for that. The gardens are really fascinating. Most of the gardens were really nice. This particular area, they were trying to build a rock garden. Made one big mistake. They forgot to spray the horsetail first. I don't know if you've ever dealt with horsetail, but it's not a plant that's stopped by anything that humans know, or anything short of a small nuclear device. So the horsetail had just taken over the garden, so now they sort of had to put the garden, this part of the garden, on hold till they could figure out how to get rid of the horsetail. There were some amazing plants there. I mentioned Juniper Palace Purple earlier. They've got a form of Palace Purple unlike anything I've ever seen. This is our native plant. That is incredible. That we've got to figure out a way to get this form over. I'm going to work on that, because that's just, I mean, it was glossy and hairy at the same time. Insane vigor. Never seen anything like that. That's got to be a new cultivar to introduce. Beautiful Genista. Oh man, I've never seen this one before. This was Genista carinalis. Only about a foot tall and just smothering the rock edges with these beautiful yellow flowers. That looks growable. I got a funny feeling we can do that. Vancouverian. I've tried Vancouverian. I've kept Vancouverian alive for 12 years. It's 1 inch wide, it's 3 inches tall. Their patches of Vancouverian would cover the front of this room. It's a U.S. native. All right, West Coast, but U.S. native. I've never seen this in Washington State grow like this. No wonder people tout it as a ground cover. Oh my God. Just absolutely amazing. Carex fraseri, or Simophilus fraseri, depending on taxonomy. That's another East Coast native. That's native to the mountains here. I can't keep this alive. I have tried and tried and tried. Their clumps are the size of bushel baskets. It's just not right. On so many levels that they can do this. They had come over here this past year, one of the curators, and we had taken them around, and they'd gone out in the wild to do some collecting. Oh my goodness. And they bring the stuff back there and then embarrass us. It's just wrong. Our native Lilium philadelphicum. Drifts of it through the garden. It's incredible. Who's growing Lilium philadelphicum? Is anybody even growing it? It's our East Coast native. The Europeans appreciate our native plants better than we do where they're in our backyard. There's just something There's something just so wrong about this that we have to change. We've got to. Chastophyllum. I've tried this countless times, and I've killed it, but I know this is growable. I was growing it. It's succulent. I thought this should be in sun. It's a woodland plant. They've got it growing in the shade. Oh my goodness. I have another one. I'm going to grow this. I think this should be really good for us here. About a foot tall in flower, this beautiful ground cover, Chastophyllum oppositefolium. I got a good feeling about this. I think we're going to see this start entering the trade over here. Then we walk up on a forest of monkey puzzle tree. What the heck are they doing there? There's just no way a Chilean monkey puzzle should be growing in the middle of Germany. And not just growing, they got forest on it. Oh my goodness, absolutely. The climate there just allows them to grow such a diversity of stuff. It's just amazing. This is the hydrangea petiolaris. These things, again, would cover a third of this room. And they were using them as ground covers. It was incredible. Never seen them used like this. Well, I've seen them grow up brick walls. Okay, that's fine. This was amazing. They use them on steep slopes. Fantastic use. I've changed everything I know about this plant. I've planted a bunch of them when I got back and in different areas just to let them run and flower with these incredible hydrangea-like heads. Just an amazing plant. And when we looked up, oh my God, variegated Norway maples, Prince Henley, look at that. Isn't that incredible? I mean, we can barely grow Norways here in our climate. And I'll look at this. I'm like, well, that's interesting. That's bright. And got up closer, it's a variegated tulip poplar.
Wow.
And not just a little one, it's a humongous one. We've grown that here at the Arboretum, but my goodness, it never got anywhere like that. Really quite extraordinary. Next day, we're actually on the plane now. We're leaving Germany on our way, first visit to Sweden. We arrived sort of mid to late afternoon on a Friday, so we said, well, let's go ahead and check out the garden at Gothenburg. Gothenburg we know because they're one of the few gardens that still exchanges plant material. They have a wonderful, what's called an index seminar, which means basically free seed to other botanic gardens. So we've got seed from them for years. We'd always wanted to go and visit, so here we are at their entrance. Entrance comes right out of a little subdivision. And you basically walk through the gates, and I wasn't really sure what to think till we walked through. It just opens up into this incredible facility. First thing you're greeted by is the row of golden chain trees, laburnum. And again, we know we're not in North Carolina. We can grow that. Oh my goodness, no. We found Eve. That's where she wound up. We got to get the two of them reunited. She still got the apple and the grapes, and she's just looking for poor Adam, but we got her. We walked into the greenhouses and introduced ourselves, and they took us back through their research greenhouses. These are Dionysius. These are like the coolest plants ever. This is like moonscape plants. These are native to Iran, Iraq, Turkey, those places that get like a couple inches of rain if they are really lucky. These plants have to have good air movement. They have to have absolutely no water. The water gets on them, they're dead. Look at that. Can you imagine what it's like to grow this? They were panicking the day we were there. The electricity was going in and out of the greenhouse. They said if the fans are off for an hour, these die. They had about a week ago, the fans had gone off. They'd lost half the collection, dead.
Wow.
They are that incredibly sensitive in cultivation. But what an amazing, look at this. I am in love with Dionysius. There is probably not a chance I could ever grow them, but man, you could just pet these things. They're just too cool. I mean, that's just, we don't have plants like that over here. I may have to head over to Turkey and some of those other countries when they start behaving better and see these things in the wild. That's just absolutely too cool. As we walked out into the gardens, it just opened up. The garden's very small when you walk in, and it just expands. This is just one of the areas looking down to the little cafeteria, just incredible perennials, totally unlike Munich. Everything here was immaculate, kept perfect. I mean, just amazing. How you can have such a difference is just amazing. It's an incredible place. Everybody said, walk up to the rock garden. So up we walked to one of the best rock gardens in the world. I've heard this called this, and the one in Scotland. I'm drawing a blank now. Edinburgh, thank you. Edinburgh is the other two of the best rock gardens. And I would agree. I spent 2 days in this rock garden, and it is absolutely extraordinary. The waterfall they built, that is all man-made construction. That was done just a few years earlier. Just an incredible place. You could just walk through every corner. Everything was labeled perfectly. It was broken down in areas. We had the North American section, the European section, the Asian section. This is looking into the Asian section. Just everywhere you turned was amazing. Again, you know you're not in North Carolina. See the blue? Echinopsis, Himalayan poppy. It's a weed for them. Yes, don't you just feel terrible for people that have too much Echinopsis? I do. Oh my goodness. And there again, just looking into the Asian gardens. There was not a lot of staff there, so we again we were there till pitch black, and then we'd come back a little later on. So I'll share that with you as we really get more into the plants of the garden. The next day, Saturday, we went to visit the gentleman that I was supposed to speak to. So this is his garden. Only man I've ever seen that had his own road sign. I thought that was pretty cool. That says Peter Korn's garden. And so we go in. Here's Peter with his new love of his life. And Peter, I'll give you a little background. Peter's garden is very extensive. Well, 2 years ago, Peter's wife up and left him and divorced him. So he emailed us a couple years ago and said, I'm going to have to get rid of the garden. I'm going to have to sell the garden. I'm going to close it. Well, this is a lifetime's work. So after trying to get rid of it for a year, Peter met Julia and sort of became reunited. Now, she lives 2 hours south. So he lives with her, and then every other week they come back and work on the garden. I mean, this is really crazy. But he's decided now to actually keep the garden, which was really good news because it's, as you'll see, quite extraordinary. How many people have your own music? This is Peter's father-in-law and his garden curator that after work in the evening, they sit here and play music for several hours in the garden. It was absolutely delightful. I've never quite run into anything like that. It's not like bringing in a band. You've got your own band there because this worker actually lives in the house with them. Peter's garden, when he started out, he bought mountaintop land. Everything is mountaintop. It's nothing but a big old rock. So Peter decided he's going to landscape this whole area with peat blocks. So this is peat moss you make into a block. And he stacked those up, and that worked great. Stuff grew fantastic, but so did the weeds. And Peter's not into weeding. Peter said, how could I stop the rocks? So we got rid of, the weeds. So I said, I got rid of all the peat blocks, and he put rocks over everything. Little rocks. He already had big rocks, but now he has little rocks. It's sort of a finely ground rock almost to a sand. This is his garden. He cleared that. That was all in woods, cut everything down. He gardens this entire, my guess is about 10 acres now. He and Julia and his one, this guy does not sleep. This is an insane person. This is just walking through many sections of the garden. And he found in the rocks, he said, stuff grows slower, but the weeds don't grow. So he's pretty much eliminated weeds by growing that. This is what you would see if you focus in on every plant is labeled, every plant tucked in among the rocks. It's just extraordinary. This area, for example, was completely covered. Peter dug out to expose the rock face. None of those rock faces were exposed. He hand dug all of those so we could see the face of the rocks. This is not normal. That is completely planted. Now, he hauled in that finely ground rock and plant it in it. This is it. Look, do you see the labels in there? Do you see? There's probably 300 different plants in that picture. And it's hard to photograph this garden. You have to go there and get on your hands and knees and spend days. It's just crazy, the amount of stuff this man has in this garden. Now he claims he's a Zone 4B. That's southern Minnesota. It's amazing what he can grow. It's cold and the wind, because again, he's cut out all the trees. This has just an insane amount of wind. These little paths you go through, and just every square inch is something that's been planted. I've never seen anything like this that was that much of a testament to the human spirit. It's really quite extraordinary. And here we are looking back to the house, and as you go back to the house, the garden leads you into his nursery. And this is how Peter makes a living. He now is also doing landscape design, but that's new. He made his entire living out of this little nursery. And he used to open every single weekend, so he's now doing it. He's cut back his weekends. It's now more similar to what we're doing. So people come from literally all over the world to be able to shop, because he has all these rare treasures. Now, Peter gathers plants. He goes on expeditions like I do. But Peter also has a crazy brother. And Peter's brother, for 12 years, bicycled across the world. He bicycled from Sweden to China, to New Zealand. I mean, yes, he gets on a boat to go across. But he's bicycled through pretty much every single country, collecting plants and seed as he goes. And he sends the seed back to Peter. Peter has stuff in this garden nobody else has. Many new species have been discovered on this trip. It's absolutely extraordinary. Peter was sort of mourning because last year his brother met a woman, I think in Kazakhstan or somewhere, and he's now settled down and got a real job working at his father's construction company. So no more new plants unless Peter goes. But believe me, he has enough plants for a lifetime, and he knows every single one of them, knows where everyone is in the garden, what it's done. It's truly unlike anything I've ever seen. Wow. Again, wow. Oh my God, can they grow lupins? That's just embarrassing. That just is so wrong. Flocks of surgeons, our western flocks of surgeon wagon wheels. I couldn't even think about keeping that alive. And here it is growing absolutely fabulous. So many of the West Coast things, just love it here. To see the dicentras. And to him, just to show what we've already learned. These new dicentras, they have to have full sun. Full baking sun. I mean, his sun is harsh. We've learned the same things. These things are not shade plants. I killed this plant 3 times, planted it in shade. Until I learned full sun. He plants it out in the full sun in gravel. With yuccas. This is insane. That's where that plant likes to grow. We have to totally rethink where we grow dicentras. But pretty amazing plant. That's burning hearts. Oh my God. Eriophorum. Oh my God. I've heard of this. I've never grown this. I will be growing this. I love this. It's like a little cotton candy grass. It's a little 15, 18-inch thing. That's definitely a must. That's on top of my list. Incarvelius. Oh my God, I've killed Incarvelius. This is a brand new subspecies his brother found on one of his trips. It's either just been named or getting ready to be named. Oh my goodness, that's just stunning. That's all there is to say. I can't grow this one, and I just can't do Incarvelius. Malospermum. So another, I told you I was into the Apiaceae, the Queen Anne's lace family. Oh wow. This is like 4-foot tall, killer foliage. Malospermum helopinense. Can't even say it. He did share seed with us. Hopefully we can get this one up. That's just cool on so many levels, a textural point of view. And his brother brought back so many Solomon seals. This is little dwarf, about 15 inches tall, with light purple flowers. Just absolutely incredible Solomon seals there. That's a Smilacina, fall Solomon seal, with purple foliage. Smilacina purpurea. I've never seen this before. oh my goodness gracious, we did get a little piece of this, we have this back, fingers crossed we can grow this. That was just, wow, that's pretty amazing. That's the Jack in the Pulpit. That's Erycema graffiti. Have you ever tried growing graffiti? Do you know, I've killed more graffiti than, there's not even, I'm not even telling how many. This thing is this tall. This is almost head high. This is growing in his gravel. Oh man, I am embarrassed. I mean, that's just, and the leaves are this big. It's so amazing to go to different climates and see what they can grow and see what we struggle with here so mightily, and to them it's almost like weeds. Sunday, we went to a side trip down south, the very bottom of Sweden, right on the Denmark border. We wanted to visit a gentleman named Ulf Seal. Now, we met Ulf through Facebook. Ulf is a salmon fisherman. He takes people on salmon fishing expeditions. Ulf, about 4 years ago, got bitten by the plant bug. He bought this house, and it had the typical plants in the front, and he looked at that for about a year and said, I want to grow something differently. So he started a Facebook group called Plants for Cold Climates. Some of you may be members of that. And he started a couple other Facebook groups that we're on. And all of a sudden, he's got like 4,000 members on this group, and he's become this world expert of cool little plants. He doesn't want anything that gets big. It's all these little treasures. So this is Ulf, just delightful guy, absolutely amazing. And he has traded with everybody in the country. I've seen these plants, I'm like, where did you get? He's got Trillium tennesseans. It was just discovered last year as a new species from Tennessee. There's only 2 people he could have got it from. And sure enough, he's already been trading with them. I mean, it's amazing. So, Ulf likes attention. So right as you walk in, that's the first thing that greets you is this garden sculpture. I had to admit, I've never seen a garden sculpture quite like that. But Ulf is just basically stripped down his narrow lot. He stripped every plant out and put these pathways in just filled with rare treasures. We spent 3 hours just traversing this little path. It's a tiny area, and you think there's nothing in there, and then you get looking. Mayapple, unknown species from China. Is that pretty cool? I think so. I think we want this. Paris, more Paris. Paris Japonica. Look at that. Isn't that incredible? Again, first cousin to trilliums. Paris leucoensis or marmarage, depending on your taxonomist. Oh man, we actually grow this. This actually does okay for us. Trillidium. This is the other member of the Trillium group. Not Trillium, not Paris, Trillidium. Trillidium guvianum from the Himalayas up into India. Never seen this in person before. And doing quite well. Beautiful little dwarf. Oh my God, the Cypripedium. This man has got Cypripediums like crazy. It's the Cypripedium henryi. This is one that has up to 5 flowers on each stalk. They're just stacked. It is unbelievable. I think we actually can grow this. I think if we can get this, we can grow this. Cypripedium margaritifer. Oh man, look at that. Is that not incredible? Whoops. More of the Asian Cypripediums. I mean, these just, that's just so wrong that these should be growing. It's just, that's Tibeticum. Oh man. Man, we got to figure out a way to try some of these here. Clintonias. I love Clintonia. We have a native Clintonia. This is the Asian Clintonia udensis. Whoops. This is a hepatica. This is one clone. It makes clumps this big. It's one his dad had growing in his garden. It is a spreading Hepatica transylvanica. He actually has about 200 plants for me if he can figure out how to get a phyto and get them into the U.S. The government, our government, has made it impossible to ship plants in now without a potato cyst nematode test of your potting soil. It's in his garden. There is no potting soil. So our government has basically shut down me getting plants from people like this. So it's really sad. We're trying to work and figure ways to get them in and get the right certificates, but it's proven really difficult. It's sad. It's a little Solomon seal, a little variegated Solomon seal. Never seen this one before. There's another one, a little Solomon seal. Never seen this. He's found some collector in Japan that I don't even know that's got this crazy stuff. And I just had to take a picture of his neighbor across the street. That is Baruncus, which I normally think of as a little perennial. Here it's used as a shrub. That was amazing. Another amazing thing in this garden was their robotic mower. He said huge amounts of people in Sweden use these. And you bury a little fence, like the little thing you put for your dogs, the invisible fence. You have invisible fence for your mowers now. And so you can be gardening while your yard gets mowed by this little robot. That's actually really hot in Sweden, which I found. They've been around in the U.S. for decades, but they've never caught on. But in Sweden, they're really the bee's knees over there. Driving back, the traffic jams were insane on the road, but I took this opportunity to just give you an idea of what the roadsides are like with lupins. Just absolutely hours and hours. I never thought I'd get tired of seeing lupins. Absolutely, I mean, it's truly an amazing sight over there. They've just naturalized everywhere. Final day, we went back to the Gothenburg Botanic Garden and met up with this gentleman who I tried to catch earlier, but he was left. This is Heinrich Zetterlin. He's basically the director of horticulture there at the garden, an incredible plantsman known all over the world. Many of you may have read his book on Corydalus. He's just a phenomenal plantsman and somebody who is just loves talking plants and most of all loves sharing plants, which was really nice. Some of his finds, this is a Brunnera, which we grow Brunnera macrophylla. This is one he collected in the wild. It runs. Brunnera is not stoloniferous. There's no such thing, but he's found this one he's named something about Georgian, let's see, what did he name this? Georgian carpet, found it in Soviet Georgia, former Soviet Georgia. The Corydalus, obviously with his collection, is just absolutely incredible. I mean, just every color, I could show you a whole show on Corydalus. It's just amazing what's there. Doubt we could grow many of these, maybe a few.
Wow.
The plant that blew me away in the garden is this is a Senecio, or actually now it's been moved into the genus Parasenecio, Begoniafolius. It looks like a Rex begonia. This is coming out of China, totally hardy in zone 6. This should be really good for us. I've never seen anything like this that was winter hardy before. So he did send us back with a piece of this, so we have this now. Fingers crossed that we can nurse it back to health after the trip. Still be simplicifolia. I've grown that. I've tried to grow it. All the stuff in the trade is simplicifolia. It's a hybrid. That's the real thing. That's why it's named simplicifolia, because it's got a simple leaf. Nothing I've ever seen sold as this is the right plant. So it was so great to see wild collections of the correct material. Here's another one. Beesia calcifolia. This plant does not exist in the U.S. Everything sold here in the U.S. is labeled wrong. It's one of Dan Hinckley's collections, and I've tried to reason with Dan and explain to him that the two are not anything alike. This one's deciduous, the other one's evergreen. This one has 60 lobes, the other one has 20 lobes, and I can't get the name changed. But finally, to realize that the real plant is in cultivation, and I do think this would grow very well for us. A little woodland plant with leaves look sort of like a wild ginger. That is a woodland allium. Is that incredible or what? Allium ovalifolia leuconeuron? Oh my goodness. That's the most un-allium looking allium I have ever seen. And the fact that it grows in the woodland with hostas and corydalus, that is at the top of my want list. I have to have that. That is just beyond cool. Just got to find a source for it, so maybe we'll entice him into digging up a little piece and sending it over. Oh my goodness, the stuff that they grew there was amazing. Diphylia, our native Diphylia, head high. I can't grow this. I tried. It's a mountain plant. I have tried and tried and tried. Cannot keep this alive. And absolutely incredible. Podophyllums. Podophyllum, the white flowered Podophyllum auranticaule. I've heard of this, never seen it before. Red edges on the leaves, white flowers, absolutely amazing. And then this, Podophyllum hemsleyanum, a plant that we actually grow. I have 2 plants of this. And I didn't know what it was. I knew it didn't match anything I'd ever seen. And right before I went, I had emailed Julian Shaw, Dr. Shaw at Q, the guy who wrote the monograph, and said, "What is this?" And he wrote back all excited, "That's Podophyllum hemsleyanum. That plant has never been known from a living specimen. It's only known from a dried herbarium sheet." Right before I left, so I was able to walk into the garden and see Podophyllum spa and say, "That's Podophyllum hemsleyanum." You can check with Professor Shaw, and he'll confirm that. They were all excited to actually get the name. So it was really neat to see that the plant is finally starting to get around from some wild collections in China. Another beautiful Solomon seal, again, these incredible purple flowers, just amazing. Anybody ever grown this one before? This was a new one to me. Let me get the name right again. Megacarpa. I love things. Megacarpa. This is a woodland plant. Oh my goodness, that's just too cool. I love that. Got to get that. I mean, obviously things that can grow so well, the primulas. This one actually will grow for us. Primula japonica, they just grow it a lot better than we do. A beautiful little Adenophyra, campanula relative, 1 inch tall. Cute as a button. He actually sent back a piece of this with us, so hopefully we'll get this established here. Trostium. This is the Asian counterpart of our native Trostium. Nobody even knows our native Trostiums. Beautiful plant, but just an amazing woodland specimen, very tropical looking. He said, "Let me show you this. So this is the best pulmonaria ever, and nobody grows it. Pulmonaria filarskiana. I'd heard the name, didn't know it was in cultivation. He said, "I planted this one plant here, it's spread to 20 feet across in the woodland, and red flowers." He's like, "I don't understand why people grow the others. This is the one they should be growing." And again, he sent us back with pieces of this, so one day you will be seeing this in the trade. That is really exciting when you run across something like that. Soldanella, this is again first cousin to our Shortia. They didn't just grow it. I mean, they want to embarrass all of us. I mean, that's just ridiculous. This is back up in the rock garden. It's just crazy. Adiantum venustum, the Himalayan maidenhair, they don't just have one accession, they have 3 different accessions. This is one that gets 18 inches tall. For us, 6 inches. I'm assuming they have a special form. This is a deciduous form, much more elegant. And this is a 3rd form with smaller leaves that they had just collected, smaller pinnae. I mean, it's just, as a fern guy, really amazing. More of the Asian, Osmunda asiatica. 7 foot across, 6 foot tall. This, we can grow this. This we actually can grow. Latinum niponicum, a fern we grow. Never grown it like that. I got to move mine. I mean, just absolutely extraordinary how good this plant grows. This is an interesting Dropteris. They have it labeled as CF crassirrhizoma. Well, I know crassirrhizoma. I've collected it in Korea. It matures out at this tall. Their plant is head high. I said, "I see why you have CF on it." He said, "Yeah." I said, "We think it's probably a new species." We have to get this. I mean, it's 6 foot tall, beautiful Dropteris. Oh, man. And that definitely should grow where that's from. So many incredible Erasemas. Oh, my God. This is Elephas, which we sadly cannot grow here. Doing absolutely amazing there. That's their form of graffiti. It looks like a cobra head. It's just extraordinary to see these growing. This is Udali, another of the Himalayan species. This one we may actually be able to keep that one alive. And then this unnamed thing, which probably will wind up being a brand new species. This guy watched me the whole time I was there. And watched me really close when I ate lunch. I mean, who needs cameras when you have these attack birds? You know, I felt like I'm an extra in a Hitchcock film. It was just really bizarre. Looking at that eyes, I've never seen a bird do that before. Very spooky. This is Hans with me, and he was so excited. We walked in the gardens, and there's a page of his first named introduction, Hosta Fire and Ice. That's got to be really cool to see your plant over there. And it was so neat to see several hostas that his company had worked on. Northern Exposure, another Walter's Gardens introduction, Queen of the Seas, a plant he personally put into tissue culture. It would never have existed outside of the original garden. So always exciting when you have those connections to back home. Again, I can show you amazing plants for all night. Lewisias, our native to the West Coast. This beautiful Luzula nivea, which I've definitely got to try. That should grow here. Oh my God. More Mechanopsis. Red flowered Mechanopsis. It's just so wrong. A plant I saw this plant in the wild, 1996 in China. It is the most difficult plant to cultivate, bar none. We brought back seed. Everybody on trip got the seed up 2 inches tall, rotted off. Everybody. It didn't matter if you had no water on it. If you breathed on it, this plant died. Here it is in flower. I said, how did you do this? He said, we have been trying for over a decade. We finally got it, not only alive, alive, but flowering in the garden. This is Thermopsis barbata. Oh my goodness. Most Thermopsis are yellow. This is the most beautiful thing in the world. It grows on this incredible scree up near the Tibetan border. An incredible plant. It's just so cool to finally see this. And just a couple woodies to end with. Anybody ever seen a lilac like that? Syringa Kumaria. Something like that. I can't even pronounce it. Kumaroi. I've never seen a weeping lilac like that. Wow. I emailed Richard Olson, who was just here for an interview, and I said, Richard, I looked online, and this exists at the National Arboretum, so we need this plant down here. That is way too cool. And this beautiful Euonymus hamiltonianus in full bloom. I've heard the name, never seen it. It's like a dogwood in flower. And then, of course, to catch their beautiful Davidium in full bloom. Absolutely massive old plant. I mean, I could have taken 100 pictures. Actually, I did take 100 pictures. Just an incredible sight. I can't imagine a better plant. I can't imagine a better garden. If you get the opportunity to travel to some of these areas, especially Gothenburg, especially Peter Korn's garden, and then again a couple of the gardens in Germany. And we've just explored a tiny fraction, so obviously this is going to need a return trip. Thank you very much. If we have any questions, glad to entertain those. I think we probably put everybody to sleep with a lot of plant pictures.
No questions for Tony? Come on, about 150 of you in here. Not a single one? There's one.
Where was that lilac from?
It's a Chinese lilac. It's actually from Sichuan. So it should grow well for us.
Did it smell?
You know, I forgot to smell it. Now, I was so overwhelmed, I really didn't even pay attention to smell. More science.
Any other questions?
And how large was the Davidium tree?
Oh my God, it was probably 40 feet. It was really pretty incredible. It was a religious experience. Thank you again. Hope we'll see y'all come out for open house this weekend.
Thank you very much, Tony.